Welcome to the next episode of the Bash programming series. Today, we will take a look at various shell expansions in Bash. Well, but what are shell expansions exactly? Shell expansions are operations with special characters that produce different values. They can be used to perform arithmetic operations on numbers, creating multiple files with a single command, and getting the result of a command, and much more. Okay, so first, let's start with the brace expansion. Brace expansions are used to generate strings sharing a common prefix and suffix. Both of these can be empty. Okay, so for example, if I want to display a few words that shares the same suffix, I could do something like this. Let me just modify this file so I can execute it. Now we see B, C, Lee, and Toffee. Okay, but, well, there are some important caveats with this. If I add a space in between, the output is not the same. And that's because the suffix here is empty. Well, if we want to see a space after those words, we can do something like this. Also, we must keep in mind that the items in the brace expansion cannot be separated by a space. Because now we get something like this. Okay, so we can generate more than just strings, for example, numbers. Let's do numbers from 1 to 10. We'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can also set by how much we want to increment our values. For example, here I add 2 to each element. This has some nice practical uses. For example, if I would like to create a folder with each month from years from 2020 to 2025, I could do something like this. To replace the echo with mkdir, which stands for make directory. Now we see that I get quite a lot of directories. To also show you the prefix, we could do something like this, the planet. Now we can list our planets in the solar system. Okay, I'm going to comment that out for now. We can see that this is in the same line, so we can add a new line at the end here. But there's one more problem. Each version of the string generated by the brace expansion is separated by a space by default. We can work around it, but to do that we have to use a for loop, and I'm going to show that in the next episodes. Okay, let's move on to the next shell expansion, which is the tilde expansion. Well, it basically tells us the home directory. If we add the plus, we get the path to the working directory or the pwd variable, which is the same as this. If we add the minus, we get the old pwd variable if it is set. Well, and we can add some stuff at the end, for example. And at the beginning as well. To display a tilde sign, we can escape it using the left slash. Okay, now let's move on to something we've seen previously, the shell parameter expansion and the $sign. The $character introduces parameter expansion, command substitution, or arithmetic expansion. Okay, first, we can do something like this, and those numbers represent the command line arguments of our script. For example, I can pass something like A, B, C. So A is the first argument, B is the second, and C is the third. I can also use the brace expansion to do something like this, or like this. And we get many more arguments, but we are not displaying them. Let's try to display the 11th letter. And what's this? I get A1. This is not really what we wanted. Fix this and get the 11th argument. We can use the braces. And we see that it is K. So the braces are required when the parameter is a positional parameter with more than one digit, or when the parameter is followed by a character that is not to be interpreted as a part of its name. Okay, I'm going to show some examples. You don't always need the curly braces. For example, here the variable also ends with 11. And we can safely display it using the $sign without any braces. Okay, but there's also something called indirection expansion. And this basically adds a level of indirection. So for example, if I echo ABCD, I'm going to get WXYZ. If I add an exclamation point at the beginning, I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's because, well, ABCD is WXYZ, and WXYZ is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this basically points to a variable name that this variable stores. Also, if you have some multiple variables, you can use the exclamation point to get their names. For example, here I'm going to get the names of variables that start with num. I get num1, num2. Now, one more thing I would like to mention is the substring expansion. First, we provide the string, then the starting point, and then the length. Okay, so let's get a string, for example, hello world. Now let's say we only want to display world. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we get world. Okay, but maybe without the exclamation mark. So the word world has 5 characters. Nice. If I only wanted to display hello, I could start from the beginning. Third parameter here can also be a negative number. So if I start, for example, from 4, and then do here -1, I will get to this character. So not the last one, but the previous one. Okay, nice. While we are also at the topic of positional argument, let's mention the @ symbol and the star symbol. Now, if I use a brace expansion to pass the command line arguments to our script, those two things may seem relatively the same, but they are not. The @ symbol is recommended because if we use it, we have separate arguments. But the $* makes our arguments a single combined string, and we really want that. We haven't covered for loops, but just to show you one thing, if I now run this echo has printed all of the letters in our alphabet in separate lines. But this only printed them in one line, so in my experience it's better to use the $@ symbol. Okay, one more thing on the variable expansions. String uppercasing and lowercasing. Let's say I have a string that looks something like this. Turn all the characters to uppercase. We use the add symbol and large U. Only turn the first character to uppercase. And we use the small u. As you can see, A is uppercase now. And to turn everything to the lowercase, we use an uppercase L. Okay, nice. Next thing on our list is command substitution. Okay, I also moved our terminal to the right so that it's easier for you to see the output of the terminal, because, well, here in the YouTube play bar may overlap. Command substitution. To use it, we have to use a dollar with a single normal parenthesis. So, for example, here we have the ls output. And if we save this output to a variable, for example, called directories, and run our command expression script, we get all of the files and directories in our folder here. Well, we can also modify it. There's also a deprecated way to use it, and and we can save the output of a command using backticks. But it's not really recommended. And why? Well, we can cluster those commands inside each other. So, for example, the expression command is used for adding or, well, performing some operations in numbers. So first we add 2 plus 3 and then 4 and we get 9. And it is a normal command that we can also execute in the terminal here. But if we were to use backticks, well, this would look kind of ugly. And actually will not even work, because we have to escape the backticks if we want to nest those commands together. Now it works, but it's, well, you can see it's not the best form. Okay, and the last expansion that we'll cover in this episode is the arithmetic expansion. So for arithmetic expressions, double parentheses are used. Okay, let's show a few more examples. I'm also going to introduce the read command. This is going to read the input from the console or any other output if we were to chain some commands together, but I'm going to explain chaining commands and redirecting output in another video. Okay, so I can now input, for example, 3 and 5. So a plus b is 8. Well, and it's not much complicated. We can multiply, divide, subtract, and much more. Well, here we got 0 because 3 divided by 5 is 0.6, but those operations only support whole numbers. So floating point integers will not work here. Right, we'll do something like this. We get a syntax error. So to add floating point numbers, you will have to use special commands. But I'm going to show that also later, probably in a different episode. Also, we have the power operator and the modulo operator. There's also a deprecated way to perform mathematical operations, and it is by using the square brackets. If I run this, the results are pretty much the same, but it's an older way of adding numbers, so, well, double parentheses is recommended. Okay, so we've used the expr command here which can also be used to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, but there are some subtle differences between this expansion and the command. For example, we also have the binary AND here, and we get 1. Because, you know, 3 is what? For example, 0, 0, 1, 1, like, because 2 to the power of 0 and 2 to the power of 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. 5 is this in binary. So the only one that is like shared between those numbers is something like this. If we use the command, we also have to escape the ampersand symbol, and the output will be different. It's 3. If we check the manual of the expression command, it's not the binary AND, it's arg1 if neither argument is null or 0, otherwise 0. So it's something completely different. Okay, one more thing, there is no power symbol in the expression command. Here we also have to escape this, but it will not work. Get a syntax error, unexpected argument. But we can multiply, but we also have to escape the asterisk. Because if we don't do that, we get unexpected argument 2020-01. That's because the star lists everything in the current directory. Also, we have to be careful when using expansions together. Here I have something like this. And as we can see, it does not expand to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like it should have here. And that's because of the ordering of the expansions. If we take a look at the Bash reference manual, we can read that the order of expansions is brace expansion, tilde expansion, parameter and variable expansion, arithmetic expansion, and command substitution, done in a left-to-right fashion, word splitting, file name expansion, and quote removal. So brace expansion happens before any arithmetic expansion and before parameter and variable expansion. So if we go back to the code and declare a variable, for example, a equals 12, and now do $a, this brace expansion also does not work, as we might have expected. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that would be it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Hit like, comment and subscribe, and in the next episode we will talk about control flow in Bash. So that would be if statements, switch case, and return codes. Okay, so thanks again for watching. See you next time and goodbye.